Sin is not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
Dune.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Chad Mel movie hour. This is probably the most exciting movie hour we've done since Alien?
Since Alien, for sure.
Yeah, we've all been waiting for this.
Well, we're going to do Blade Runner, but, we haven't done it yet.
In the works. It's in production. Yeah. So since you guys are as excited as we are for Dune, we are finally doing it after the movie's been pushed back for a year and a half. We've now seen it thrice. So we are here to discuss, unpack, process, and celebrate Denis Villeneuve's version of Dune. So
yes.
Cheers. All right.
And so I just want to get out of the way straight away that we both agree that it's phenomenal. And we both highly, highly recommend it. And we both think that this is how it's done, people.
Yes. I think we knew as Denis fans, and I think anybody that's seen his other, his body of work, if there was ever going to be capable hands to put this film in, if there was ever going to be a steward of Frank Herbert's material that was going to do it right, much like Favreau and Filoni have done with the Star Wars franchise, I feel like Denis gave us as close to perfection as we're going to get with this.
Yes. I agree.
So we both agree. We've both read the book.
And we both agree that you should read the book if you can prior to seeing the movie. The movie is upon us, so there may not be time. Maybe you can read the book afterward if you haven't read the book. Even if you've read the book, reread the book before you watch the movie. That's how I would say. Yeah,
because I think one of the most important talking points for me anyways in this discussion is going to be how much I appreciate and how well executed this particular point was done, which is that this movie was a love letter to the readers of the book. This movie was made for people who have read the book.
Absolutely.
And the flip side of that coin is, if you haven't read the book, how will audiences receive it who haven't read the source material? So that's going to be an interesting thing to see play out. Right.
We both watched it separately, and then we watched it together, and we kind of talked through it watching it together because we'd already seen it. And one of the things we kept saying is, how will this be perceived? Because it's I think it's going to be a hit, but I really hope it's a super hit, because then we're going to get all the films. And I was saying, I think they should do all the Dune stories. There's Children of Dune, Messiah of Dune, which I haven't read yet, on my list of things to do. But if they're going to do it this well, I want all the Dunes.
All of the Dunes, we want them all.
Yes.
And it's very disheartening to learn that part 2 of this adaptation has yet to be greenlit. So
they should be in production.
Yesterday.
A year ago.
Seriously though. And
Lord of the Rings, right? Is where they did them back to back intentionally, and it was all, why didn't that happen this time? And we talked about actors aging. You have some young actors in this that you probably noticed a little bit of a difference maybe in feel or look.
Yeah, and when you look at something like a franchise as successful as Lord of the Rings and what Peter Jackson was able to do, yes, they were filmed they were filmed back to back.
Right. And
the success of that process, and then, this movie being made, just part 1 being interrupted by COVID and reshoots and edits and, all of that interrupting the process, and you still have what we consider to be a masterpiece.
Right.
But knowing that we're sitting on this pile of uncertainty with part 2,
Although I think, I told you this, I think it's a little overblown, because I think that they are going to do a part 2. I think I'm 99% certain it's going to happen, because this film is going to do good business, even if people don't understand it, I feel, because it's so needed right now. It's such a big Hollywood blockbuster, and these type of films on this scale tend to do well.
Yes.
I just don't see it not doing well, and I see them making a part 2, but hopefully a lot more than just part 2.
Yes, and that being said, it's the perfect blockbuster popcorn cinematic experience, but it's also fan service in the best possible way.
Yes.
To Dune fans, and it's obviously gotten critical acclaim already. I think box office numbers will hopefully reflect that, and not just opening weekend numbers, but I hope people will go to see it who have no idea what Dune is about, and be introduced to this beautiful world that is not just the source material for, you know, the first book in this series, but is what Star Wars is based on. Literally name a science fiction movie or book. It's come from Frank Herbert. Yes, we're gonna cut deep.
Yeah, and Denis says that he wishes people see this in theaters. If you're gonna stream it, great. We streamed it today.
Yes.
I'm a fan of streaming. I'm also a huge theater fan. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make sure a ticket is bought in my name. That this film is getting box office, because that's what it's about. People support these type of films. Yes.
Yeah, and I think Denis, having seen Blade Runner and how he was such a just careful, brilliant steward of that franchise,
we had all the faith.
We had all the faith in the world, and I feel like my expectations were met, if not exceeded. Now, we can nitpick, and we're going to nitpick, trust and believe. But in terms of a film adaptation of a book, especially a film adaptation of a book that is Dune, that no one has been able to successfully execute, including David Lynch, including Jodorowsky.
Right.
Here we have the closest thing to perfection, I think, as is possible for a filmmaker to give with a book this rich.
I have so many thoughts.
We're hashtag blessed. And also stressed.
Also, but David Lynch, we can't fault him for messing up his, because he inherited it really late in production. So he couldn't control it. And also, he was a really young filmmaker. You have to think of that.
Okay.
And the types of films he went on to do, which I think are all masterpieces. He's one of the best directors of all time. 100%. And it's hard to fault him for that, because it was like taking, you know, command of a ship that was already like really off course. And I think, you know, he regrets it, but, you know, there's some interesting visual things in it, but it's not good.
Yeah, there are, and there's an extraordinary cast in the original Dune, I think, and there's just so many things that were.
But we talked about how Paul is, you know, better in this film because he's younger, like in the book, right? He's not like it's like. Hi kids, fellow. What is the meme?
We love.
Hello, fellow kids.
We love Kyle MacLachlan, and he did a really good job. I think.
Love Kyle MacLachlan.
But my goodness, you're not a 15-year-old boy, sir.
You know, Lynch and MacLachlan went on to, you know, give us many great things.
Twin Peaks, yes.
But yeah, it's just, you know, it's a product of its time, and it's a product that went haywire. But for sure, so for sure. I think Denis was able to course correct from looking at the storied history of Dune and really be, you know, as mindful as we all really hoped that he would.
Yeah, agreed. So. And you are your bar for film with your level of expertise and your love for the medium, your bar is set very high. And
too high.
Sometimes too high. You did say that this was like the best sci-fi movie, and what?
Yeah, I'm gonna say a lot of crazy shit on this, but stuff that I think is absolutely 100% true. It may seem audacious, but it's just truth, people. This is the best sci-fi film that I can think of in the past, probably like up to 30 years, and it's 100% the best source material for a film, especially a sci-fi film, in that amount of time as well. So that's like pretty fucking epic and incredible.
It is, and coming from you, like that means something. That means something. And in our notes, because we took very careful notes as always for our movie hours, Chad wrote in his notes, quote, "I think this film could become iconic," unquote. And we throw the word iconic around a lot, but I think in this case,
it's hard because like
this one has staying power.
Right, like unfortunately, I was not a huge fan of the marketing in this film. We could talk about that. But they did say stuff like, you know, this is the next Star Wars, everybody.
Yeah.
This is the next which so much to unpack there. But
to that point.
Yeah. But no, but hopefully this does become like a big epic like hit film series, We can go through my notes if you want to talk.
Why don't you talk about the marketing though too, because that's something we take to task a lot, and I agree with you in that they missed the mark on
absolutely.
Selling this
we will
movie.
get to that. So let's let me go through my points and get your
hit us with the bullet points.
Get your feedback on them as well. So one of the first things I wrote that hit me right out the gate is like, this is refreshingly science fiction. It's a sci-fi movie. Genres are disintegrating in front of our very eyes, people. And we can't let this happen. Like, we used to have
Not on our watch.
finite, genres, and we just don't see that being allowed as much now, because what's making money are these things where it's like, it's funny, but it's action-packed, but it's like this and that.
Trying to give you everything.
I won't name anything. Anyway, Marvel.
Chad does not like Marvel.
No, but
sadly.
Sorry, I'll
fix
my life. But so this, however, does not play that game. This is like, I know what I am. Denis knew what he was making. He was making a sci-fi movie. I can't, other than Blade Runner 2049, which the aforementioned, I can't really think of, but maybe a handful of big opening, like big budget sci-fi movies that played on that level, other than Blade Runner 2049. You have some indies, which were interesting.
Prometheus, I would say, was a player, but it didn't land.
Yes.
It was a candidate. It was a contender.
I erased it from my memory. I'm sorry.
It was a contender, but it did not live up. And there you even have the original director. And
I'm thinking of great movies, though.
Oh, excuse me. I apologize.
No, and I do like Prometheus. I think Covenant, we both agree, is where they went far more astray. But, how do you feel about that, and just genre kind of melding into this, like, new thing where everyone has to be pleased?
Yeah, well, I mean, to your very valid point, the MCU is in large part to blame for that, and you take blame with a grain of salt, right? I'm a huge MCU fan. He is MCU allergic. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna break his spirit. But the whole thing of that is, I think, part and parcel of why the MCU is so successful, is because you get a full experience. You get the drama, you get the laughs, you get the action, you get the tears. So you get it all.
Yeah, it maybe makes sense for that universe.
Yeah.
But
sure. I 100% agree with you that this movie, Dune Part 1, is down the line, straight down the center, sci-fi to its core. And I don't mean like pop culture sci-fi even.
There's not like action sequences thrown in. There's adventure, and there's like, I was telling Mel, I was even holding my breath. Like, that's how gripping it is and exciting it is, but without having to now we're a different genre.
Right, and it doesn't hold your hand, and it doesn't force feed you, it doesn't pander, it doesn't condescend.
Yeah.
And there's, that I think goes back to it being very much a movie adaptation for readers of the book.
Right.
Which we can come back to, but it is down the line, hard and fast. Not just science fiction, but it is 100% true to Herbert's vision.
Right, and that's a very science fiction work, right?
Yeah.
The novel is a very science fiction work.
The Bible of science fiction.
And I feel that, it could be no other way.
Yes.
But moving on, we mentioned, I feel like this is probably the best science fiction movie in 30 years or more. It's better than Blade Runner 2049, and I love that. Love that film. 2049.
No, I know, but I didn't hear you say those words aloud until just now.
Yeah, that's a film in the last 30 years.
I know, but
it's better than that, in my opinion. Okay. I think it's better than that. Better source material.
I agree.
Blade Runner, the original. Now, this is the point I want to make.
This tells you how good this movie is. Listen.
See, I think Blade Runner, the original, is still better than this film, than Dune. I think the original Blade Runner.
Now we're getting into it.
Blade Runner 2049, which was always just maybe a half step or a step, under its original.
Okay.
Because you're working with this new Hollywood process, this new writers, and
Ryan Gosling's in it.
Oh God.
I love Gosling. I
love all the people. But listen, so I wrote that, classics like 2001: A Space Odyssey during its time, now it's whatever. But during its time, and Blade Runner were way more, you know, those films had the ability to be way more impactful on filmmaking and culture than
Right.
this film will be. And also,
Right.
I think we're better than this film. Why can't a film get made now that is as good as Blade Runner from the 80s?
I think there's two points to that. Or I don't know, maybe two possible reasons. Number one, you know, when Kubrick made Space Odyssey and when Ridley made Blade Runner, those were the firsts of their kind, right? And we hadn't seen sci-fi or just film in general on that scale, that level of craftsmanship and just masterwork on that scale. And I think the second point is that as we're moving forward in time, you know, we're seeing in the cultural zeitgeist this kind of psycho-spiritual, we're seeing material in the pop culture that's much more metaphysical, philosophical, that speaks to existential crises. And I think that, coupled with the fact that film making and technology
Culture,
has
society,
advanced too, classism, we're seeing these things in the mainstream more and more often, so it's not as impactful.
Right.
But with Dune, where again, if you've read the book and you know the source material, you realize how ahead of its time that book was, and how it set the stage for pretty much all science fiction to follow.
Yeah.
And to see it come to life and executed properly for the first time ever.
We said it's a gift. Those were our words. A gift.
It is.
The movie is a gift.
Hashtag blessed.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And you're welcome because we're also talking about.
And I don't know if you were
it's a double gift.
if you were already gonna say this or not, but the Hollywood system is set up so that, you know, it's become more and more every decade about money and bottom line and marketing and all these things, and it's harder and harder for a director to have complete and total control.
Creative control.
And I think Denis had a fair amount of control over this, and that's evident. But I do think the system, just by nature, is making it harder and harder for films that are that impactful and that powerful.
And even Denis, when he was negotiating making this movie, said, "I will only do this if you let me do it in 2 parts." Mm-hmm. Because he had the wisdom to realize you cannot.
But he didn't get that in writing, right?
Apparently not. Or maybe it was just a result of
could turn him down now?
The panoramic that we're in. But like,
right.
Regardless, the pandemonium that we're in, the Pandora of it all. But I think the fact that he had the wisdom and was such a good steward of the source material to know this cannot be crammed into one movie.
Yeah, I have here, very exciting that it's going to be fleshed out into parts.
Yes.
That was one of the biggest obstacles, right, to overcome, is like, how do you fit such dense source material into one film, like a 2-hour film? Denis, rightly so, said you can't, or you shouldn't, is a better word. And so decided, 2 parts. I think 2 parts is a really sweet spot for one book like this. It still does condense a lot, though, even in 2 parts.
Yes.
And we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to get real wild
Here
on
we
your
go.
ass.
That's what
So everybody just drop your Cranston and listen, because this is a better film than any of the Star Wars films that have ever been released.
Wow.
It's better source material for sure. And when you're working with better source material, there's just the fact of like how much George Lucas ripped off.
You just said the most controversial thing I think you could say to any fans.
I challenge you to, disagree with me if you want, but see the film first and make a decision. But it's better in so many ways, because as you're watching, if you have the awareness that Dune predates Star Wars, which we're assuming you all do.
We're hoping most people know.
You just realize every step of the way, like, oh, George got that from Dune. George got that from Dune.
Everything.
Everything. The Force, the lightsabers, Chris knives, the Force, the spice,
the entire narrative.
Tatooine,
Luke Skywalker is Paul Atreides.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything. Right down the line. it's fucked up, people.
It is fucked up.
And somebody's got to answer.
Somebody is going to take... Okay. So I want to say this about that, though, because I was very snobbish about science fiction when I was younger and fantasy. Like, I just thought that was, like, B material. And it wasn't until I was literally in my 30s that I started reading comic books and science fiction and Lord of the Rings, and that saddens me. This is stuff that I wish I had read much earlier on, but I'm so grateful that I've read it. And I didn't read Dune for the first time until last year. And I had the pleasure of reading with him and 2 of my other friends. We did a book club, and it was extraordinary.
Highly recommended.
Get a book club together. Read book with your friend.
You'll be surprised how many people want to do it with you.
Read Dune with your friends. It's some people consider it a very heady book. I don't consider it heady, but there's a lot of detail, much like if you read Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or anything by George R. R. Martin. There's going to be a lot of detail, so it is helpful to read with friends and take your time with and reread.
And take your time. I was going to say that. Take your time with it. Don't be afraid to go back over things. I'm not a fan of highlighting in any of my books, but if you have, just a copy for highlighting, highlight. It's so
tabs. Get yourself some tabs.
You can really meditate on so many passages. Just sit with them. I love to do that. I would stop reading and just ponder something that I had read. It's so well written. It's so incredible.
And the thing about having read it for the first time just last year was that you realize, and one of the people we were reading it in our book club with really drove home for me, because he had already read the book, and he said, listen, when you read Dune, you're going to realize just how unoriginal George Lucas is.
Yeah.
And that stings to hear. But I think people who have read Dune realize that this is the truth. But I say all that to say that that shouldn't take away from your love of Star Wars.
No, not at all. But
you said that this was a better movie than any of the Star Wars, and that's very controversial.
I think it's a better film because in some ways Star Wars can be... Listen, I'm a Star Wars fan.
I'm listening.
My cat is named Yoda. When I was picking this sweater, this lovely piece out, this Kanye West original, hashtag H&M. I was I passed by a sweater with C-3PO on it. So I'm a Star Wars fan.
I know.
I can be a Star Wars fan and still level criticism.
Absolutely.
Where I think so that's what I'm doing. I just want it comes from a place of love. I do think if you really think about it, the StarArs films, as lovable and nostalgic as they are, I'm talking about the OG original trilogy because that's all I watch. But those films, I think, they're fun, they're silly in a way, and they can be one-dimensional in a way. They can also be emotional and rich at times, but I think this is a much richer, deeper philosophy, story, cinematography. I mean, of course, because it's,
and it's
30 years, 40, 60 years removed from the...
It's really hard...
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
there's a lot of ways to look at
it's really hard to watch Star Wars, even the original trilogy, which, Empire Strikes Back is, one of the greatest movies ever made. It's really hard to go back and watch George Lucas's original vision and not see what a facsimile it is of Herbert, which is really, it stings.
And he's never been taken to task on a large scale for this. You have people on the internet saying that. But it's never become a thing that people realized on a cultural level. Yeah,
because it isn't just it's not even just he took a reference. It's a facsimile. Yeah, it's bittersweet.
And he admits it.
He does.
Which is fucking crazy. But he totally admits it, and I think he always acts very surprised that Star Wars was such a big hit. It's incredible, but it's just funny. He's
George is an anomaly. I don't understand.
He is. And you've seen The People versus George Lucas.
Yes, everybody needs to watch the documentary The People versus George Lucas.
Hey, moving on. Along. This film, what film are we doing? Dune should win.
Rosemary's Baby.
Dune should win an Oscar for production design if it wins an Oscar.
Oh, it's going to win Oscars.
Yeah,
at least technical Oscars.
Well, it needs nominations across the board almost, but
it'll definitely get technical nominations.
This type of a film where it's so locked into sci-fi, I think they're gonna
sci-fi.
It's gonna get nods, right? But I don't think it's gonna sweep or anything like that. It should, but Less for acting. I think more for like production design and like cinematography and those kind of things. And I keep thinking too that like source material. I just keep thinking that because when we do our movie hours, I'm always complaining like, why isn't writing better?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, the biggest area because CG has advanced, it's gotten better. Production design is usually pretty good, but writing, especially like we talked about Prometheus and Alien Covenant, the writing is what crippled it.
Garbage.
Yeah.
So are you saying, to be clear, the writing on this...
So this is a screenplay based on the book, but when your source material is that good...
How do you
That's
meet that
why
moment?
this is so good, I think.
But do you think they met the moment? Do you think the screenwriters...
I do. Well, we can debate it, but I overall, yes, I do.
I agree.
Overall. Moving on.
Moving along.
I put in here that it differs from the book in all the right ways when you're... And we went back and forth on this, and I even changed my mind on this a few times, but I'll double down. I'll say it differs from the book in all the right ways. But here's what I mean by that. It leaves stuff out that we missed sometimes. Yeah. But overall, what you're doing is you're translating from one medium to another.
Right.
And when you translate to the screen from a book, you have to reformat. You have to, I mean, it's just inevitable. Now, it should be done like with reverence to the source material, which we said it was.
It is, yeah.
So that's great. But I just feel that like they kind of did it very skillfully.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
I think that there are definitely things from... Because the Dune Part 1 essentially is the first half of the book.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I feel like my biggest... All of my complaints are non-complaints, really, at the end of the day. What I miss most from this particular... from Denis' vision and this adaptation is the philosophy. I feel like a lot of the philosophy of what you get in the precepts of each chapter.
The prose.
Yeah. There's just a lot of mythology and philosophy that you can't really distill down into a 90-minute format, a 3-hour format even, you know what I mean?
But you were making a great point when we were watching about how they left a lot of things out here and there along the way, but if you've read the book and you're up on the book,
it's all implied.
It's all there for you to know and remember, and it kind of, it's fleshed out by having read the book. Now, if you haven't read the book, as you were saying when we were watching, this is a great point, audiences may be completely lost. This was always the problem with translating Dune to the screen.
Right.
It's what Lynch faced, it's what Jodorowsky would have faced, it's what everybody has always said about translating this, is that the material is too dense.
Yeah.
I think they succeeded. That's my bigger point. That based on how dense the material is, they succeeded.
Yeah.
But I agree that I would have liked to see more of the prose because the language was so beautiful. Not all of it, but there were gems. There's always a diamond in the sand.
Yeah.
See what I did?
I just saw you.
So, like, I would have loved to have seen some more of those quotes, more of those diamonds and gems from the book. Yeah. Of course, fear is the mind killer.
Fear is the mind killer. We get a lot of...
Yeah.
Lady Jessica gives us a lot of that, and that thank God for that. But, I mean, even Star Wars gave itself 9 movies to tell its narrative, you know?
Right.
And
we need 6 minimum.
Yeah, and it's...
Because then you have 2 films per book, and we can do Dune... Children, Dune,
Children of
Messiah, Dune, Children of Dune.
Whatever bullshit comes after that.
Fuck it all. So I put in my notes here that, is this a spoil? Should we do spoilers? Spoilers? We're way past.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the Dune...
You better come correct if you're coming to Chad Mel movie hour.
We didn't say it, but major spoilers ahead. So, when we get to the final worm encounter, which is what we're all waiting for, because it's such a huge, significant, amazing moment. It's
Kevin Bacon is there. It's a Kevin Bacon cameo.
Tremors. it's incredible. Like, it's so well done, and there's a richness and layers to the subtext of it that you were cluing me into the second time I watched it that I didn't even get the first time. I put in here, I was holding my breath during that moment because it's just, you're on the edge of your seat. It's so exciting. It's everything you would hope it to be. It's the scale is like so huge.
Halud.
The design is so good. We talked a lot about color grading.
Color
in this
grading
film.
is so well done.
Incredible.
Such care.
Such beauty and finesse and subtlety to the different shading of color and the different shading of a sand dune that's like in the foreground versus the background, mid-ground. Yeah, incredible. And just like so well done. Not just like Mad Max Orange craziness.
Right.
But like or like you said,
there's
like Blade
dimension
Runner,
and there's such attention to detail.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't just overkill it with orange because that would have been easy to do, and it's so skillful.
And because Arrakis isn't just desert, there's the melange, like the spice that's
woven in the air,
and
in
they
the
capture
sand.
that in the lighting. They capture that in the close-ups of the sand. It's extraordinary.
Incredible. Moving on because we got a lot to cover, a lot to get through. I wrote, I'll just say this. This is what happens when everyone in charge of a production knows what they're doing and is not fucking around. Yes. We kind of said that already.
They did not come to play. They came to honor Frank Herbert. They came to honor
they did the damn thing.
The people that read the book. Yeah. And they came to tell this story.
Yeah.
And be stewards of it and introduce it to a new generation.
I'm going to go there.
Go.
So... like we said, nothing's perfect. We all have our different opinions on this. But one of my least favorite things, which I still think they did very, very, very well, and I still think, I would say the casting is great. But the casting, to me, is not as good as other aspects of the film. Like,
I'll give you that.
Cinematography, source material, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. The casting is a little bit hit or miss. It's still great, and I still think everyone does a really great job. It's not even as distracting as I thought it would be. It's probably better in the final film than I was expecting. Okay. But when you have people like Momoa and Chalamet, that's not how you spell his name, Chad, that's my fault. Chalamet. These people that are very like zeitgeisty celebrities that are very like clickbaity, like sex appeal shoved down your throat. And it's like Aquaman, and it's just like, it's hard. It's a little bit hard for me to disassociate from that and get lost in the film, right? And that's the ultimate goal. Yeah. Is you want to get lost in the film and
you want to see the characters.
Like,
and the
I think back to Alien, who had the unknown Sigourney Weaver. Right. That's like a freaking 1 in a million. They hit the jackpot. And could you imagine seeing an unknown actress?
I would have.
One name of Sigourney Weaver in said film Alien in 1979 and not know her? And be like, what did I just witness? Yeah. So a little bit more of that would have gone a long way with me. Like if they had like a few people that weren't like celebrities.
I feel that 100%. Like it's definitely an A-list cast and
and I think that's part and parcel of making a Hollywood film on this budget level is like the studios are like, well, if you want this. If you want $250 million or however much it was to make the film,
better put Timothée.
We want some celebrities in there so we can market the hell out of it.
I will say this about that. I think, they're A-list for the most part. I will say some of the supporting actors, or I don't even want to say supporting, but some of the ensemble, especially the actress who plays Liet Kynes and the actor who plays Jamis. And I don't want to butcher their name, so if you'll just forgive me. So the actor that plays Jamis, Babs Olusanmakun, forgive me, it's a Nigerian name, and Sharon Duncan Brewster, who plays Dr. Liet Kynes, and the person who plays Dr. Yue, you couldn't ask for better. I was blown away by the person that played Jamis.
My favorite is probably the Baron. And
Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård. I just think literally think there isn't anyone else that could have played that right now. like that I could fathom.
Yeah.
Like it was perfect to me. It was perfect.
And what was great about his performance of the Baron, especially if you compare it to Lynch's version, which you shouldn't,
which I can't even stomach.
But like the Baron can, even in the book, the Baron can very easily become a caricature.
Yes.
And Stellan does not. It's not a caricature. Like you see, like the human being that's there.
Right. It's all subtext. He's layered his performance. Layer upon layer upon layer. It's all there. It's all in his performance.
Yes.
And it's very, I said this to you, it's very Marlon Brando for some reason. It's like... Specifically Island of Dr. Moreau. Like there's something...
Very much so.
But on some other shit. On the next level.
He's on some other shit.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously way more well done. But you know, Brando was considered a savant in the acting world at that moment and for his storied career.
Right.
But so I see that with this actor, and I just see that gravitas and that power and that talent, and it's incredible.
And he's the patriarch of a brilliant acting family too. I mean, it's incredible.
The other thing, if I'm going to criticize anything else, you were saying this, so I'll come back to it. You were wanting to talk about the marketing.
Yes.
Least favorite thing about the whole fucking film is the marketing. For me.
For me too.
Okay. Well, it didn't seem to bother you as much as me.
No, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you, because I just I don't like it. I take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Like they're gonna pander to get people on the seat.
Right.
But every point you make about the marketing is on point.
This just feels like such a special film that it feels sad that it's not marketed specially.
Agreed.
Like, let's handle this with white gloves. Like, let's see what I did there.
I see what you
Inside joke is sorry, you're not invited. So yeah, I just really wanted this. Like, we're seeing a lot of independent companies like Mondo. If you're familiar with these companies, Shout Factory release like Blu-rays and posters from independent artists.
Okay.
They're making these
like fan
these
art.
Smaller artists, but like they're real artists. It's not fan art. Not to say fan art can't be amazing, but these are like real artists. But they're mostly smaller artists and independent and up and coming people, and they're giving them these opportunities to shine and create unofficial, or for lack of a better word, like fan art posters. But then they're selling them in a very professional way and printing them up in a very professional way. And oftentimes, like 99 times out of 100, they're far better than anything the studio puts out, because the studio is locked into this like floating head, big head collage thing, like just selling the celebrity. And ramming that down.
Even in the ensemble poster, it's a facsimile of like the Star Wars aesthetic, where you have you have Paul or Tim in the foreground, and then you have all all these
selling the celebrities and not the story
characters.
Not the story, which is for me is the most important part, and it's the part that I feel like is just shit on now, because either like you have all these hastily written films or all these rewrites. And just like, I don't know what's going on, but writing to me suffers the most right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm no screenwriter. I'm not saying that I know the answer or could do it. I certainly could not. But I just wish that we saw more great writing now.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't really be out of ideas. I know that.
We can't.
I know we've done a lot, but
we're not. I think we've forgotten, and this could be just like the fact that I'm a mythology major now, and I'm really paying attention to the importance of storytelling. But it's just, I think as a culture, we've gotten so far removed from storytelling as not just an art form, but as a way of life, and as a way of ritual and sacrament. And so everything has become, it's so much easier to recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle. And we're starting like with things like movie hours we've done, like on The Lighthouse or on Mother, like Robert Eggers, and there are younger filmmakers that are like, especially A24 is pumping out a lot of great material.
Love A24.
These filmmakers are getting the ability to use their artistic license, and we're seeing the return of storytelling and creative license. But it's still a long way to go.
Right. It's more on the indie side of things, which is you know, it all comes back to money, I feel like.
But Denis, I mean, I think Denis did it.
Yeah, he did it.
And the writers on this adaptation really, really, you could tell that they didn't
It's
just
remarkable,
know the material, they
knew
loved the
it.
material, and they cared to enough to to take their time with it.
Right. So we said some of my nitpicks. We'll just go through my favorite things real quick.
There's only 37.
My 3 favorite things are the cinematography, the script, and production design, in no particular order. Those are my 3 favorite things. I just like and when I say production design, I'm talking about the Thopters, which
we're gonna talk the star of the film. Yes,
Thopters. Yes. Okay. When I think of like I need to own something from this film, it's just like a Thopter figure,
model,
a Thopter model. Yeah, that's what I want from this film. It's the only thing like I feel like this is what I need from this film.
And it's such a beautiful
collector.
like iconography.
Stunning. Yes.
Use your words, Melissa.
No.
Just like an iconic representation of the entire narrative.
Yeah.
And
it's like if you're reading this film, or if you're reading this book, and imagining the film. This is like either met or exceeded your like wildest expectations for how the ornithopter could make a screen transition.
Yeah, because there was a lot of the descriptions when reading the book of the machinery and the ships especially that was for me particularly like I was imagining it and I had it in my mind's eye, but like I didn't. And then boom, the Thopter. Like the Thopter, whoever was
how it works,
responsible,
how it looks,
whomever's like
machine inspired by nature. It's a dragonfly. It looks like it would really work like in the future. Like
the mechanics,
maybe not in our universe, but either in a parallel or in another.
Right.
It looks like it could work, and I'm such a fan of design that looks functional.
It does look realistic. It does look functional. It's absolutely stunning to watch, and not just like
probably the best like vehicle I've seen on screen in 30 years.
No, seriously, like
that.
no fucking joke. Like not even just like the blades which mimic like a dragonfly's wings, but the way that the ship maneuvers and goes into these free fall moments. It's so. It is so original, and it's unlike any recent spacecraft, or I mean, it's a helicopter, but any recent science fiction craft. Right. And there's other spacecraft in the film that's absolutely stunning too, but the Thopters are the fucking star of this movie. Take 100%. Timothy's face off the posters and put the goddamn ornithopter front and center. Please, thank you. Please and thank you.
So another thing about this film that's amazing are the visual effects, and that's not hard to do these days. We've seen it in a number of films. Forever we've been complaining about visual effects, and I feel like their CG's finally catching up, but it's still not perfect when it's done on like living animals. Yeah. But I feel like when it's done under the helm of the right person that knows like when to use CG and when to use practical, that's when it really shines. Like there's a lot of CG in this movie, but it's never once distracting. Yes. And that's because someone like Denis is helming this project. Ridley Scott has done some really good CG. So I feel like the CG is incredible in this movie. The vistas, the scenery, the spice. There's a really interesting creature that the Baron has that when the Bene Gesserit,
the pet
woman comes to his domain and says, make the creature leave, and he says no, and she says, or he says it can't hear you, and she uses the voice. Oh, it hurt her. Yes. But that creature with the hands, it's a spider, but with human hands on the end of each leg. And it's got like skin
made of latex, which I thought was so such a
cool.
Sexy, interesting.
It reminded me of like this is like a diss maybe, but it reminded me of American Horror Story.
Nice.
Like you know, like in the first, it was like a little bit of that mixed with like. I mean, it was something they might have done in that.
I want to say this because if I don't see it now, I'm going to forget it. But one of the things we talked about offline while we were watching this movie for the second or third time was that we do our homework. Was that in the David Lynch version, with the Baron, you get very much he's disgusting, he's a villain, he's
hard
the
to
bad
watch.
guy. There's a lot of homophobia. There's some pedophilia notes floating around in there.
Yep.
You know, he's very syphilitic. It's just you get. They're not.
A little of that goes a long way, right? You don't have to like hit us over the head with it.
But you very much get in the Lynch version. Oh, he's the bad guy, and this is how bad he is. In part 1 of Dune, it's very tempered.
Right.
Which I still
there could have been a little more.
I don't know how I feel about it.
They rightly pulled back, which I think they were.
Oh yeah, they needed to pull back, and they pulled back in all the right ways. But you really, because the Baron has so little screen time, you don't really get a sense, in my opinion, of how insidious, dangerous, and evil he is.
I got a feeling that was like, there's a lot more to come.
Right.
So he'll be a star, like in part 2.
With the pet, with the spider thing,
to
me, and the fact that it had like skin that was very latexy, and it was eating out of its like its head was here and it was eating out of its hindquarters. So it was very like vaginal. The spider thing.
No, it was eating with its. We saw its abdomen in our.
Oh, we were seeing the ass.
Yes, it was the abdomen.
It
was eating out of a bowl, but we never really saw its head.
I thought this was.
No, because this was the big end.
I thought it was.
And it was like a crack
ass.
Here.
Okay. Well, either way, the creepiness of the spider pet,
it was amazing.
I think was a great way to suggest that the Baron is a fucking creep.
Yeah, he is. And there's still like young boys and see-through things around him, which I think we needed a little bit.
I feel like they were very androgynous. I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I think where the original went too far is like, oh, because he's gay, he has herpes. So he has like herpes sores on his mouth because he's gay.
Very homophobic.
Like, there's, we got rid of that.
Yeah.
So it's good, but he can still, I said this to you, as a gay man, I'm just going to say like, I feel like a gay man on the screen can still be evil, can still be disgusting, can still be a pedophile. It doesn't mean they're saying all gay people are that way.
Right,
like, we should allow a gay character to be despicable.
Yeah.
And have it not be homophobic, but it definitely kind of was in that first film.
The Lynch version didn't toe a line.
Yeah, however
the Lynch version was very just off.
Yeah, but it's not to say that like a gay person can't be like a villain, right? We can't be too precious, but yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Agreed, yeah.
Moving on.
Moving along.
Let's see. In many, many ways, this is how I pictured it from reading the book. So it's uncanny, and we both thought this, and I have a feeling a lot of people are going to feel this way.
I swear to God, if you guys don't comment below,
it's because Denis is so like, he's got a great mind, and when he read it, he's picturing these things. We're all picturing these things, and I just feel like he brought it to life in such a way that like it's so close to how it's weird.
Because I'm so interested because critical acclaim is already out there. Like the critics love the movie. We're very excited to see what fans think of it because a lot of people will have read the book. Most people probably won't have. We'll talk about that, but I think that it's interesting because much like Ridley Scott, who is also a very visual storyteller and storyboarded his own movies, Denis is a very visual storyteller.
Right.
And when we were talking about how we could not believe the degree to which what we imagined in our mind's eyes came, like, I mean, not just in terms of like visually what I imagined, but tonally, like even the way things were framed was lifted from the page. I don't know how he did that.
And I think it's down to like it being done right.
Did that.
Yeah, and him helming it and not sacrificing. Like saying it needs to be
X way.
This way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And cheers to that.
And cheers to that.
Cheers to
and it was so well done.
To saying fuck the studios, we're gonna do this the right way.
And I just know that a lot of people that are very familiar with the book are going to be very pleased with how the production looks on screen.
Agreed.
Yeah, but it's magical that it happened that way.
It's kind of miraculous and it's kind of surreal because we've all seen film adaptations of books, right? Like even Lord of the Rings.
Ad nauseum.
But I mean, look at something that was as masterfully executed as Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Mm-hmm. That really lifted a lot of stuff off the page, just as you would have imagined it. And
led to Harry Potter being a big film.
Yes.
I think a lot of things in its wake, like it succeeded so well as a genre film trilogy
Yes.
at that, budget.
Yeah.
That a lot in its wake was able to.
Yeah, I think that the adaptations of J.K.'s franchise, they did a really good job of lifting things off the page and making them real. But this was almost like
on another level.
Psychedelic to
Yeah.
me, because when I watched it for the first time, I was like, especially the Gom Jabbar scene with the
Yes.
Reverend Mother, and
yeah.
that was
It's like tapping into
exactly what it looked like in my mind.
Right, it's like tapping into like a greater consciousness.
Yeah,
it's like,
it was.
It's a spirit. I think it's like a spiritual aspect of this film, and I'm not a spiritual person.
No,
but I say that like such care was taken,
and it's a testament to Frank Herbert's genius, because Frank Herbert was so tapped into
Masterful,
and so
yeah.
very much articulated the collective unconscious.
right?
And used all of these deeply, deeply archetypal motifs that without which you would not have Star Wars and all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
Because it is the penultimate
Yeah.
representation of these archetypes, and Denis and his comrades, managed to somehow put that on the screen, and I'm just like, the more I watch
Bring
this
a
movie,
tear
the
to your
more
eye.
I'm in awe of it.
Yeah.
Like how one does that.
And the more I'm reminded of George Lucas completely ripping it off, and
Yeah.
it's not said enough. I mean, I'm sure out there, if I really Googled it, it would come up on a bunch of Reddit threads.
Yeah, so
but
definitely on Reddit.
you know what? Let's say it loud and proud. Like, this is ridiculous. It makes me very angry to know that my childhood dreams were built upon fraud. In a way, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, you have to accept it for what it was. It is what it is. I will always love Star Wars, especially the original trilogy.
Yes.
I, am a big supporter of all these people that are trying to restore the original trilogy, because George will not put it out in its
Yeah.
original Oscar-winning format. He just keeps
Another reason
Yeah.
to watch The People versus George Lucas, because it goes
Yes.
into this whole art versus
I mean,
artist thing.
if that already pissed me off about George Lucas. I was mad because of that.
You and every other Star
And
Wars
then
fan.
Dune, like when I hadn't read Dune since I was very young, and rereading it was a whole other experience. In just comparing it to Star Wars, and comparing it with an adult's mind to Star Wars will blow your mind. And he's basically a fraud.
George Lucas is. I
He's-
don't want
he's
to
made-
say those words out
I
loud.
know,
It
it's like
hurts. It
sacred.
hurts.
We're treading on
It
sacred
hurts.
ground here. But you know what? Two things can be true. Star Wars can be a great nostalgic piece of our childhood that we will forever be reverential of. And we can also still be upset at George Lucas for
I do
things.
think George Lucas is a fraud. I will say that. But I will also say that in spite of his being a fraud, the art that he created,
Yeah.
in spite of it being very much a facsimile of Dune,
Yeah.
does stand on its own.
It does.
And it did work its way into the hearts and minds of millions of people, and that means something. Sadly, Herbert never got that opportunity, but George
nor
was able to
Jodorowsky.
nor Jodorowsky, but whatever George did worked. It worked.
Especially, like, it was a zeitgeist moment.
It was the right time, right place.
Time, right place. Everybody was ready for that.
I don't want to live in a world without Star Wars.
I don't
so
either. So that's why I say both can be true.
It's very bittersweet,
Yes. There's a duality here.
There's a
at
lot of
play.
paradox that we have
Yes.
to hold here at the Chad Mel movie.
But moving on, let's switch gears and go through.
We're going to Mel's notes now?
Mel's
Okay.
notes now, yeah.
So I just want to re-emphasize that the first thing that came to my mind, not even like halfway through me watching this movie for the first time, was, holy shit, this is a very good thing and a very bad thing. A very good thing in the sense that Denis, for probably the first time since Peter Jackson, and maybe arguably better executed than Peter Jackson, took impossible source material and distilled it beautifully and articulated it for the screen. More than that, this is a movie for readers of the book.
Yes.
Because there is so much in the movie that is there's so much in the movie that is
glossed over.
There's so much of the book that's not in the movie, is what I'm
Yes.
trying to say, and
things in the
important
movie
stuff.
that you need to know, things in the book that were left out of
Yes.
the movie to know what's going on.
There's a lot
that are
of
in the
like
movie.
politic. There's a lot of things that are insinuated and a lot of characters that are introduced in the movie that are fantastic, but it's like you have no real investment in them if you haven't read the book, or I don't feel like one would have any real connection.
Right.
So it's interesting. Again, we're excited to see how people receive the film who have not read the books.
I would love to talk to some people who haven't read the book,
Yeah.
who saw the film,
Yeah.
who are like, film and literature buffs but have not read
Right.
the
Did
book.
you like it? Did you not like it?
Yeah, and just see like
But
what
also,
the
did you
difference
connect
it made.
with it?
Right.
Because it's
It's a question mark.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful that this is a movie for the readers of the book. It's a love letter to us.
It is.
And somebody finally got it right, but
it could maybe have been done no other way properly.
correct, 100%.
But I
can't help but
I'm
wondering.
so curious that, because if it's true that it doesn't resonate if you haven't read the book, or it doesn't
What
quite
does that
land,
mean for the
what
rest?
what are the implications of that? Because
Yeah.
it means that millions and millions of people. I was guessing maybe like 1 out of 9 people, or 1 out of 10
Haven't read it.
have actually read the book.
Or have read it, excuse me.
Yeah, so that's being generous.
I would like to think that number's higher, but I look at myself, I didn't read
I
it
don't know.
until
I
I
just
was
feel
30,
like
38.
I just feel like people really interested in science fiction and literature read it, and it was a popular book, back when it came out.
Right.
That was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the average moviegoer is just going to see the latest big
Right.
blockbuster
Yeah.
movie, and it's like, is any of this gonna land?
And the way that the film ends, even though you
Yeah.
know it's part one of a narrative, it's a beautiful, perfect ending for people again that have read the book. But if
Yeah.
you haven't read the book, I would imagine the ending might
jarring.
leave you not
Wanting-
just wanting, but feeling disappointed.
Well, I love that it says part 1 under the title when the title card comes on. I think that's a very important.
Sets the expectation.
Yeah, because it sets the tone. It declares it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
It's bold, and I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. And
And I'm really looking forward to a Blu-ray master cut
Oh, God,
where they
please.
combine both
all
and
the
extend
cuts.
it.
We want all the
And
cuts.
could you imagine the ability to watch this? Maybe like on a 4K Blu-ray, they could do it like a UHD disc could have just like a 1080p version of like both films combined and extended.
Stop it right now.
Like, take
Take my money. Take our money.
Take my money.
Give
Take
me
my
the
time.
box set. Give me the box set, please. I think that in spite of all of that, whether you've read the book or not, the film does an excellent job of bringing the non-initiated up to
think
speed
so,
very
too.
quickly, which I think was necessary, and again, they succeeded in that. Everything from the floating lights to the shields to the costumes to the
There were definitely parallels to Blade Runner 2049, which Denis
yes, there were
Villeneuve also directed, and because in that film you got the floating
lights,
gadgets.
yeah.
Well, when there's that scene where they're the floating cameras,
Oh yeah.
I was reminded of that and other floating things.
Yeah,
So that tech is very much in his universe,
absolutely. Yeah.
cinematic universe.
Yes.
of the
And there
new-
was some very similar shots and architecture to Blade Runner, which was not like a.
Yeah,
It wasn't
I'm
bad.
not complaining.
It was just.
No.
It was like, oh, this is definitely a Denis Villeneuve film.
I know, but
It's
in a
okay.
good way. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
For those that have read the book, the way that they articulated the voice, I thought could not have been done better.
Agree.
From the opening scene with Paul and Lady Jessica, his mother, sitting at the breakfast table, and she's testing it and says, use the voice. Just
The sound design.
The
sound design and score is not always perfect in our opinions, but this is an instance where they nailed it.
Yes. It's
Nailed
very
it.
disruptive. It's very psychedelic. It's very.
It's two-tone. Like you have like a
Yes.
higher thing coming, so it's not just like, oh, it's deep, so it's
right.
like
It's layered.
it's
Two voices layered.
Yeah,
Two
it's
tracks.
so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think
Very well done.
we talked about this earlier, but I think specifically the suit that the Baron wears, which isn't a suit, but in the Lynch version, he's got like all of this, machinery that like supports him. Whereas in this, he just has kind of these, I don't know what you might call them, like implants along his spine that help support him and allow him to like move around and float and whatnot. I think it was just a brilliant choice.
It's more advanced tech. Yeah, I think it's an update that was good.
One of the things that really was surprising to me about this movie, but I absolutely loved, and again, I think is going to be, I know would be lost on people who haven't read the book, is Grandpa Atreides, Duke Leto's father,
right,
with all of the bull and matador imagery that is really, really focused on this movie.
Yeah, by Paul.
Arguably even more so than in the book. But you have all of this imagery.
Well, they started with a portrait of him, but they don't really say who it is.
They never say who it is.
And it's quick enough that, like, you really have to, like... You have to piece it together if you haven't read the book.
They do make mention of it when Paul and Daddy are walking through the cemetery, and Paul says, "Oh, grandfather used to fight bulls for sport." So you know
then you have
that,
all the bull imagery.
but then there's no explanation of anything.
It's very quick though, because I think I might have even missed that.
That's the only mention of it, but his choice to keep focusing on that
there's a lot of things
throughout the movie
that are missable.
Yeah.
Like, you have to really, on second and third viewing, you notice more. And there were things I noticed when we watched it together that were lost on me my first time, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And the I don't know if you have this in your notes. Probably not, because you just said you noticed it on this watching. But when Kynes is stabbed, and it's the still suit that's being stabbed. So when the knife comes out, all this water comes out through the still suit reservoir or pipe.
Yeah.
But she reacts like, like my blood is coming out. And it just drives home that on this planet, blood and water are synonymous.
Yes.
They're both life fuel. They're both rare and precious commodities that signify death if lost. Whereas we don't have that awareness or that sensibility on Earth or right now, because
planet,
water's everywhere, but just so brilliant.
And that's really driven home in the book, but not so much in the movie. So when you see something like that, it's so jarring. And another great example of that, which I didn't notice until my second watch, is that when they're in the scene where Paul, Lady Jessica, and Liet Kynes are hiding out, and Duncan is with them in the ecological station, they're hiding out from the Harkonnens. She says, make our guests comfortable or whatever, and she says to one of her people, she's like, can we have coffee service, right? So you see this guy walk away or whatever, and it feels like a throwaway line, and then a couple of minutes later, there's this shot of these people sitting around a coffee filter with this beautiful, just wide shot.
Everything's beautiful.
And they're spitting into this filter, and then you realize, they're making coffee with the spit. Because
the spit will be filtered and make the coffee.
And that really
fucking crazy.
It is.
How are you going to get enough coffee from a few people spitting? They're just going to have to spit a lot, I guess.
A lot of spit.
And also, they're sacrificing in a way.
Right. It's such a beautiful ritual.
It's a class thing in a way too.
It is very
because their leadership or their royalty, for lack of a better word.
And also later on in the movie where Paul and Mommy are in the tent, and you see the tent is like in this beautiful red color grading, and you see like the tent accumulating the moisture, and Paul's like, the tent is whatever, collecting the moisture, and he says to his mom, drink, and she's drinking the water, and he's like sweat and tears. It's just there is literally
and
no
you pointed
water
out to me
other than what comes from your body.
How the tent is like very viscous, is that the word, where it's like vein, and like it's very organic and it's amazing.
It looks like the veins of an insect's wings or something. It's very very beautiful. But just the driving home that Arrakis
Yeah.
is not just a desert, but there's literally no water there.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
Moving along.
It's like, we get it, we're in a desert, but like, do you really get
No,
it?
we don't get it.
What life would be like to live where water is so
We have no
scarce.
idea.
Like, water doesn't hardly exist on this planet. They have to save every drop of sweat, every tear, they have to save it. Especially, I mean, when
you're
they're
harvesting dead bodies. you're
until we
harvesting
get
your
a
own
glimpse
body's
of
moisture.
Las Vegas, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
which is the palace
Right.
is basically a city built on a desert, but it's like their royalty
Yeah.
and it's privilege,
They have
and they have
luxuries.
water.
Water
However, it's
enough-
shipped in
Water
and recycled.
enough to water
Water.
the sacred palm trees
Yeah.
that are enough to keep, what, 10 people alive? Or
No,
was
it's
it
like
100?
50 or 50 to
Yeah.
100 people can live from what the tree
Takes
drinks.
to water.
Yeah.
The
And Paul says, should we
cut them down.
cut them down? And he said, no, they're sacred.
sacred.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Symbol and ritual are always important.
Yes.
So the other scene that was literally plucked from my mind's eye was when Reverend Mother comes to test Paul early on in the first act with the box and the Gom Jabbar. Just absolutely stunning. I think Timothée Chalamet did a great job performing that. I love Charlotte Rampling as the Reverend Mother. I know you wanted somebody a little bit more aesthetically.
I wasn't here for Angela Lansbury, whoever that was. Like, no. Like,
Besmirch her name.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She's fabulous and she's great. I understand, her stature, but let's get somebody. It just, I don't know.
The one thing I will say about the Lynch version is the Bene Gesserit aesthetic was so beautiful.
So cool.
Yeah, it's
Very
just
cool. A lot,
beautiful.
Maybe like witchier and
witchier for sure. Yeah.
I mean, most of the time she just has a veil over her face, but it's just her
you don't get to see
features
their
aren't.
faces.
Her features are very rounded, and it just like it wasn't. I think her acting style and her acting is impeccable, but it's just something about the features. Maybe I'm used to seeing the other woman, and I kind of from the other movie.
The other thing though about it is, much like with the Baron, you don't get a real sense of how insidious and dangerous he is. You also don't really, in my opinion, get a sense of how dangerous and powerful the Bene Gesserit are.
Right, I agree.
Like,
I think that they could have illustrated that better somehow.
Like, we know from having read the books that they are basically, I mean, not Liet Kynes, Dr. Yue says it to Paul. He says, they purveyors of the good, but they have their own agenda, which is basically to design this pure bloodline to create the Messiah.
Matriarchal,
so not all
and
hashtag feminism, not so much.
Yeah, before I forget, I just want to say that
or maybe it is, I don't know.
I forgot.
We'll circle back.
Edit this out. Keep it in. All right, moving on.
So the other thing, if you've read the book or just have read anything about Frank Herbert, he was very fascinated with Islam and Muslim culture, and the book is steeped in it. I mean, even from the language that he's adapted in, for the various cultures in the Dune mythology. But I think the movie does a really good job of that with the aesthetic of the Fremen pilgrims. Again, you get the language with the Lisan al-Gaib, with Shal Hulud. So there's an homage to that, and it's done very subtly and very beautifully, I think. But Frank Herbert was, more than a little obsessed with that culture. And you can go on subreddits and find out a lot more about it. But it's fascinating how much that influenced Dune and its aesthetics, its mythology, its spirit, it's spiritual traditions, the Bene Gesserit, all of it. It's all there. But I did want to say, going back to the cast for just a moment, we don't totally agree on who we loved and who we didn't love, but I 100% think Timothée Chalamet was perfectly cast, and I think I'll use your word. Okay, calm down. I'll use your word. He's extremely competent in this role, and there are moments, because I still haven't put my finger on exactly where I take issue with him on, but I think you may have said it best. Like, there are moments, because it's a very understated performance. And I do think there are moments where that lands and where that doesn't.
Mm-hmm, we agree on that.
And you made the point when we were watching it today that they don't give in this movie him as much of a character
That's
arc
my big issue.
to show his shift from reluctant white savior, as it were, to
coming into his powers.
To his transition to Muad'Dib.
Because in the book, there's this really important scene. It was important to me when I was reading the book, where Jessica and he are in the desert, and she finally, reckons with the fact that he has changed so much. He is so powerful, and that he went in a short span of time from, a novice of some sorts compared to her and her power to someone that's like far surpassed her abilities, right? And it blows her mind, like, wow, he's come so far. Yeah. He's so strong. And she's having this whole internal dialogue about it. And it's a whole sequence in the book. And I just feel like it's not only is it not represented in the film at all, he doesn't give us a character arc. He plays, there's one or two shots that suggest it, which I only noticed on my second viewing. Okay. So that's interesting. And I wonder if Denis specifically edited or filmed it that way on purpose. But I feel like there should have been a way more obvious character arc. Like,
I agree with that.
I start off this person, by the end of the film, if I've come into this much power, I'm playing the scenes differently as an actor. I didn't see that.
Yes, I agree.
And I can't help but think that his appeal and his charm, of which apparently he has in spades, is, what... There's celebrity casting in this film.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's what the studios do to, like, get a film of this size to get seats, get butts in the seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think the closest I can come to articulating my issue with his performance is that I don't feel like I think he's a fantastic talent. I really do. But I feel like he wasn't emoting enough. And
he's definitely shown... He's definitely had richer performances than this.
Maybe that's it.
I think he's capable of more than what he did in this film. A little bit. And now we're in that nitpick area. Right. We're not tearing into.
Tim.
These are very like subtle nitpicks of this is what we felt.
Because in the scene, for me personally, the scene I already mentioned this, the Gom Jabbar scene, I think he acted beautifully. And there's a scene in the Thopter, I have this in my notes, where, he's expressing his skepticism of his mother's ways and of the Bene Gesserit ways, where he says to his mother, you're planting superstitions, and she says, no, we're preparing the way. Well, that's the existential argument of all arguments, right? And so you have skeptical, reluctant, all of that, and then you get to the scene in the third act of the movie where they're in the tent in the desert about to meet up with the Fremen, and he's having, he's getting a lot of spice, the melange has hit him, and he's having a little bit of
he's microdosed,
and he's macrodosed. The melange has it's a heroic dose, and he's having all of these visions, and I think he does brilliantly where he's like kind of not crying, but he's like, please help me, somebody please help me, there's a war in my name.
I felt that scene didn't land that well. I don't know why. I guess it's because like it's right, it precedes directly that moment where I feel there should have been like a real serious hard and fast
he's Muad'Dib now
shift and it should have been like real denoted in his character from then on. And there was one or two shots where he emotes this like real strength. One of them is in the fight scene later on with who is that?
Jamis.
Yes. Later on,
we love Jamis.
After that, where he like gives this one stance and it's very powerful. He's think
in his agency.
We needed to see like a line of demarcation, and
I agree with you.
And also like on top of that. And to
see Mom react to that line of demarcation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I want to just say, Rebecca Ferguson, is it Jessica Ferguson? It's Rebecca Ferguson. She plays Lady Jessica. I can't.
Jessica Fletcher.
Stop with the Angela Lansbury references. Rebecca Ferguson, I think, does an extraordinary job.
Yeah.
As Lady Jessica, she can just emote a lot with her eyes, which I think she's fantastic.
Yes.
My only complaint is, again, and this is nitpicking, right? This comes down to how much can you put in a movie. Her relationship with Leto, because Oscar Isaac is, Daddy is Chef's Kiss.
Yeah.
More of their relationship to show how strong that bond was before he died and sacrificed himself.
And also just because it's such a complicated relationship, right. But it's also so interesting.
Yes.
I think their bond was, I don't know if I would say they had, like, from reading the book, that they had a strong bond, but they also had,
there was rift. Yeah.
There was something between them where they weren't 100% open with each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And there's the whole thing, he won't marry her, and why, and it's this whole thing.
Again, like, if you don't read the book and you see this movie, that all of this nuance is lost.
But I agree that there should have been more with those two, because we did sacrifice a lot.
That also serves as foundation for Paul's character,
but then,
and who Paul is versus who he becomes.
Right.
Because he's very much his father's son, and he's very much his mother's son. And even when he's in the room with the Reverend Mother, and he passes the Gom Jabbar test, he says, how dare you test me like this? And she says, you have more than one birthright. You are not just your father's son, you are Jessica's son.
So having that in the film would have aided him as a performer.
I think
and aided the audience in his performance.
I think so.
I mean, it's like you end up with a 6-hour movie. So.
Listen, I wouldn't be mad, but yeah.
3 parts, maybe 3 parts should have been.
Yeah.
It just said part 1. It didn't say there wouldn't be a part 3.
No, I know.
So there could be 3 parts.
I mean, listen, I just don't want to wait until the last 20 minutes of part 2
anything we
before
lost
the
in
quiz
part
of
1
comes to us.
Yeah, anything we lost in part 1 is gone to history, because they can't go back. They're not going to flash back.
Or we might get a George Lucas 3 version re-edit. Who knows?
If only the prequels had just a percentage of this care and
honestly
and everything, but anyway.
Well, moving along to the Fremen, I loved the scene where Stilgar comes to court and he meets Duke Leto, and he spits, and then there's that moment of, oh my god.
Yeah.
And Gurney Thanos is ready to snap his fucking fingers.
Yeah.
But then Duncan, played by Jason Momoa, who Chad is not here for in this role, it's fine, it's okay, we'll talk about it.
Yes.
But where Duncan steps in, he's like, no, this is a sign of respect, he's giving his body's water to you.
And then he does an example.
Yeah, so I thought that scene was a great execution of what you read in the book too. And it's a little bit of comic relief.
Yeah.
And
if you read the book closely to watching the film, you're acutely aware of what they left out. And I wasn't, until you and I talked about it more in depth, I wasn't super disappointed with anything left out. But I agree with you on both points about what was left out. Yeah.
And I think that with regards to things left out from the book or there's things left out from the movie, or things that even are in the movie that are lost on you if you haven't read the book. I hate to harp on that, but
it's so true.
It's there.
It's very.
There's this scene where Paul is in the bedroom with his mother, and he's starting to have his revelations after he's had his first microdose of melange. And he Solange knows. Stop. Jessica Fletcher, where he tells his mom that she's pregnant, and she's like, how do you know? I barely know, it's only been a few weeks. And then it cuts to this scene of her in her veil and her garb against this stone wall with all of the Bene Gesserit script, and she's holding her baby, but the baby has the blue eyes of the Fremen.
Yeah.
And again, if you haven't read the book, what does that mean to you? Because that is major foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Major foreshadowing for part 2.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those moments. It's what the fuck is going on?
Paul does a great job, or
Timotei
does a great job as Paul at portraying his call to be with the Fremen people, but not of his arc as a character, coming into the strengths of being a Mentat or Bene Gesserit descendant and student and all that.
And speaking of Mentats, I think both Mentats were cast wonderfully. Paul Dalmatian as the Baron's Mentat, and Stephen McKinley, I might have that wrong, who plays Thufir Hawat, is just fantastic. And I love when he's taking Leto and Paul on a tour of like the spice silos, and he's got
another
a parasol.
character we don't see a lot. The parasol moment.
It's so great.
And what's funny about that parasol is it blocks no light. Like it was like
and
it was brighter under the parasol than above it.
They're not like AI, but they're like more similar to like a synthetic. You know what I mean? And like the one.
I loved it. I was here for it.
The least human character is the one carrying the parasol. It was just such a great artistic choice for the filmmakers to make. But
I related to it a lot.
I thought the editing. Who doesn't want a parasol?
I just love a shade from the sun.
I mean, especially on Arrakis.
Yeah.
Speaking of Arrakis, when in Rome, when the Baron is having a meeting with the Reverend Mother. And he, at the end of that conversation, he ascends via his suit, and he just says in Stellan's beautiful Swedish accent, he's just like, "My Arrakis, my Dune," because that's the only time you hear the word Dune in the movie too.
Yeah, I could have done with some more scenes with him. I don't think. Here's what I was just thinking.
Where is the extended 12-hour cut of this movie?
Well, I don't think he needed a lot more scenes because there's more that happens in the book with him that then is in the movie, but I just think that the scenes he's in the movie, it's not that we need more of them, but they're shorter scenes. Did you notice that?
They're very abbreviated.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes that we get with Paul and Jessica that are extended sequences, long scenes, and then you have this like quick cutaway, like a couple minutes with the Baron.
Yes.
And then we're back to 30 minutes with Paul and Jessica, which makes sense, and that's kind of how it should be, but maybe the Baron sequences could have been a little bit longer. I'm just always here for a villain, and he's just such a great villain.
Yeah, they don't give you enough sense of like this guy.
Yeah, what
like
he does perfectly. I just want more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say that the Bene Gesserit are not up to no good.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
We need more of them too.
I know. Okay, so what else? We're almost to the end of my notes here. So, editing is revelatory. Yes. Chalamet's performance in the tent, where he sees his future is sublime. We already talked about that. The little desert mouse. More of him, please. He needs his own spin-off. Little desert mouse.
And I thought of Star Wars a lot because Star Wars does that so well. Like the unique, and I know this is an Earth-based creature.
Yeah.
Like that mouse in Dune is like a real creature or based on a real creature when it's CG.
So cute.
But oh my god, I love it so much, and it does remind me of all. Like one of the things I always show up for with the Star Wars films are like the cute alien creatures. And everything from Yoda to just like all of them, and even in the new films, that's something that they do well, is that they create new ones that are amazing. And for some reason, I just thought of that when I was watching that. Is like I felt like this is like a cute creature we can love, but it didn't feel like forced. It just felt like this is just so lovable.
Yeah, because it was in the film book when he was when Paul's learning about the desert life, and then he gets to see it in real life.
Was that way in the book?
I don't remember.
I don't remember the creature from the
Comment
book.
below. I don't remember. I think that might have been an addition just for the film. But a welcome addition.
It's a damn good addition if it was an addition.
Please give me little desert mouse.
I remember
merch,
the
please.
plant life being discussed in the film books, and he's reading it on his way to Arrakis, not on...
In his bedroom, yeah. So there's, little things like that.
We talked a lot about, the differences.
Yeah. But those
mostly insignificant.
Right. Those things are like, necessary. The only
I just wanted you to hit on this point, the Baron hugging the ceiling.
Okay, so before we get to that, one of the most beautiful scenes, like from a cinematography perspective, in my opinion, of the film, is when Leto has already been paralyzed and he
is sitting kind of splayed out, completely nude, Oscar Isaac, in all of his Guatemalaness, in this kind of floating chair at the opposite end of the table from
It's
the
beautiful.
Baron, who
Yeah, beautiful.
he and the Harkonnens have just destroyed
Beauty and the
Arrakis.
Well, come on.
Stop.
It's true.
Tale as old as time. And so, like, Baron is at the other
More
end of the
Angela
table.
Lansbury.
Shut up. I'm gonna cut you.
Bitch. Alright.
And Baron is eating, you know, he's stuffing his face on this end of the table. And poor Oscar Isaac is over here, you know, in all
Paralyzed,
his, in
but
all his
aware.
vulnerability.
Right.
Yeah, cognizant, conscious,
But aware with the
paralyzed.
tooth, the false
So he's got the
tooth.
poison tooth ready to
Mhm.
pop off and kill Baron, which he does. And also, yes, thank you, UA, for your master plan. But that imagery, which
Yes.
is not in the book, I don't
That way,
believe, of
right.
like,
The Christ-like.
of
you
and
were
him
saying?
nude,
Right.
and at a dinner table. I don't think
It's
that
similar.
happened.
I think it is similar.
Is it?
It is similar.
Okay, Mama's gonna have to go back and read. But that the way the light hits him, it's
Yeah,
very.
it's not. It hits you way
Renaissance.
more
It
in the
looks like a
film than the book.
Renaissance
Yes.
painting.
Oh, it's gorgeous, and
the angles and the way it's shot and
Yeah.
the wide frame of the entire long dining room,
yeah,
and more than that,
he's objectified by the Baron
he's
in that moment
objectified.
too.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you get a little bit of like the Baron likes boys
Yeah.
moment too.
I'm here for it.
And then when Leto, crushes the tooth and exposes the poison, everybody dies, and then you see Leto dead, and the camera immediately pans to the bullhead behind him,
Yes.
which again is another like reference to Grandpa Atreides, which
Yeah.
is so. Like, they keep reinforcing that. You see Paul staring at a statue of his grandpa as a matador,
So
but just
well
that
done.
like that juxtaposition, and then
Yes.
you see everybody die, obviously, because they've been poisoned, they've been gassed, they've got the coronavirus, and then you see
They are wearing the COVID mask in
we
the
all have
Thopter at one point. Yeah,
they're wearing the what are they, the N95 masks?
yeah.
And then you see
The Yeezy line.
the Yeezy version.
Yeah.
And then when the people come to rescue Baron, everybody's dead, and then you see Baron upside down like a
Right.
bat or an
Which is
insect
almost like
hugging the ceiling.
in another film could have been like a throwaway shot in a way, but like
And
it's
it's
so
beautiful
it draws
and
you
haunting.
in. Yeah, it's haunting. It is haunting.
It's because he's so inhuman in that.
Oh yes, and
He's an insect.
He's like, oh, he is.
It was giving very much The Fly.
Yes.
A little David Cronenberg.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I loved it, and I love his character, and I love this exploration of this aspect of his character in this moment. It's so great.
And because if he had a mechanical suit like he did in the Lynch version or even in the book, he wouldn't have been able to just do that.
Probably not.
Like,
it would have been a
he
lot
can
more
just-
clumsy.
Yeah.
A lot of things that were like clunky or like dated in terms of technology or what we now foresee as like futuristic was updated in the proper
Yes.
way. Still respecting source material, but just
Yeah.
done right, refined.
Very
Yeah.
refined, elevated, as it were.
Yeah.
I want to say this about that. So I know you and I don't agree on Jason Momoa in this
Yes,
film.
let's get into it.
So
Do you have your boxing gloves?
I have never I'm not like a Jason Momoa stan. Okay, like I
Couldn't fool
like
me.
him. I think he's great. I think he was great as Khal Drogo. I think he's fine as Aquaman. Whatever. He does have one note, and he plays that one note fine. I personally thought this was the first movie I saw him in where I really felt like he rose to the occasion and elevated his performance. I thought he did Duncan, Idaho justice. I thought he was charismatic, charming. I thought his fight choreo, I just thought it was beautiful.
It's okay to disagree. I totally respect your opinion, but I have the opposite opinion on this particular point. Both opinions are valid, but I'll just say what mine was that he's like one-dimensional in this, and it's hard. If it's hard for me to disassociate him from Aquaman and his celebrity and the hair bun and the whole fucking thing, then I think it's also going to be hard. What I worry about is for a general audience, like
Suspended
losing
disbelief.
yourself in the story and not just seeing it as like a blockbuster movie with
Right.
like the big names, but seeing it as special as it really is. And I just feel like, for me, it took it out. I think other people maybe it would have the opposite effect if they really like him. They're like, oh my God, it makes it even better for them. But for me, and I didn't think his acting was deep or like moving or like multi-dimensional or any of that stuff. I just thought it was like, yeah. But I don't know a lot about his other roles. So you're comparing to a body of work, and I'm more comparing to like the marketing of Aquaman and stuff. But yeah.
Come back when you've done your homework.
Bitch.
I love you. But speaking of that, like I think the fight choreo in this movie is beautiful. Like I like how it's all knives and swords, and it's very close hand-to-hand combat with knives. And I know that you weren't like blown away by it. I thought it was very.
Yeah.
I mean, it also speaks to again how much George Lucas took, because the way that lightsaber duels are very balletic.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the same way about the way that they fight.
I've been more impressed with choreography in many other films. More than I wasn't in this film.
Okay.
I wasn't like disappointed in it, but I definitely wasn't impressed.
Okay.
I think the choreography in some of the Star Wars films was better, just in terms of like blocking and choreography for fighting. I don't know why I thought that. I'm gonna have to keep. This is gonna take many rewatchings, but yeah, like the last time like fight choreography really blew me away was probably like The Matrix. So this is my
wow, you haven't been impressed in a minute.
No, I haven't.
Jesus Christ!
But like, you know what I mean? To be really good
20
and like
fucking years.
intentional and
Nobody's
like
you.
no, because like choreography is so like, my God, we're so inundated with fight choreography now, from like the John Wick movies to continue our Keanu Reeves legacy.
John Wick
which I
1,
enjoy and I
John
love,
Wick
but
1
like
fight choreo was beautiful.
yeah, it's good, but it's like it all
It's a lot
blends
of the
together
same,
to me, and it's just like it doesn't draw me in. I check out mentally when we start with fight choreography because I'm like, all right,
here we go.
Let's
get through this. Yeah.
And it's like I wish I could enjoy it, but you know, I mean.
Well, I think when it really serves the narrative, and when it's not just like meaningless fight scenes, just to, for the sake of action. Yeah. When it serves a story, I think it's really good.
Yeah, and it was competently done, but I just like
serviceable.
It was serviceable.
It was serviceable.
I just wanted more. I didn't get a sense of like real physical skill from the actors in their choreography.
See, I really did, especially when.
See, I'm gonna have to go back and read, because if you really pinpoint that, I'm gonna need to go back and watch it.
When Timothée fights Thanos, when Gurney Halleck and Paul do the fight training with the shields. Come on, the shields are.
The shield technology was adequately updated, and we loved it.
But I thought that hand to hand was really
when he
well
just
done.
keeps putting the knife to his throat again and again or whatever.
Yeah, but like they're all like, really close up shots, and they're just the movements are quite quick, and like I mean it's not like a sword. They're like I don't know what knives this length are called, but like those shorter knives. And also Duncan's fight scene, which I mentioned, and the final fight scene between Jamis and Timothy, or Paul rather, I thought was quite beautiful.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
It just didn't grab me.
Just one woman's opinion.
One brilliant woman.
Okay, you didn't have to give me that. But I just want to say that I've got 2 more notes. Spice. We have to talk about Spice. And they, again,
Solange.
Not to beat a dead horse, but Solange Knowles is a big part of this narrative. And the fact of the matter is, if you haven't read the book, like, they tell you what Spice is. Okay, they bring you up to speed, but, like, do you really understand?
Actually, do they fully define Spice in the film?
They do. They
talk about mining of it. But
but they talk about like that it's a
how
psychedelic for the Fremen, and how it gets the rest of us to space and helps us navigate
and how
stars.
It's made the
blue
Harkonnen wealthy beyond kings and yes.
But like the whole and this is what Alien did so beautifully, is the subtext of imperialism and colonization, which Dune is a treatise on colonization and exploitation of nature and all of the rest of it, but just how much of an anomaly and a pariah almost that Duke Leto is, because he refuses to exploit and to colonize for the sake of colonizing, and he's not an imperialist, even though he is part of a monarchy, if you will, and he has his fiefdom, I don't know, take your pick, but that he sacrificed spice in order to save the people of Arrakis who were mining the spice. But just how important spice is as a commodity, how important spice is as a psychospiritual sacrament for the Fremen.
And how Paul reacts as he's exposed to it.
Yes.
Realizing those things you're mentioning.
Right. Yeah. And just that it can be so many things to so many different people.
They're all hopped up on the spice. But also, like, even without... I don't know, I just, like, Arrakis having this resource, literally this psychedelic drug as a resource, on which the whole world depends any of them are there, right?
To travel through space, through time, whatever, is just, to me, the ultimate like foundation of this narrative in terms of its philosophy and its commentary on politics and exploitation and colonization and all the rest of it, because you have this one thing to focus on. You have this one element that everybody is after, and that this one particular group of people, the Fremen, who we might liken to an indigenous culture who has a deep relationship with said resource and doesn't exploit it, and they're the only ones that are able to live on this planet, this fucking desert planet with no water, in harmony, and not just in harmony with the planet, but in harmony with Shai-Hulud, and are able to, spoiler alerts, tame Shai-Hulud, and it's just fucking fantastic. And so much of the philosophy of the book has been omitted, and I understand how, like, that's necessary, but this book is a treatise on so many things, but it's also so deeply philosophical, and the prose that you were talking about earlier, the prose in the book, we needed more of that in the movie, more quotes, more
maybe some on-screen text,
something. Because we got Fear is the Mind Killer.
It's such a literary work that other films, even Blade Runner, have had more on-screen text. This film had none. Almost none. There was a couple scenes where, like, the Fremen are talking in their native language. Subtitles.
But other than that,
not like prose.
Yeah.
Would have been really nice.
I mean, you get to see a little bit of the language.
Although people say that complicates a film for the average film goer, and that, I mean, this story to me is very simple.
It is very simple.
In some ways, but then it's also so easy to overcomplicate.
Yeah, and I don't find the narrative in book form either to be inaccessible to the average reader. Like,
I don't think so.
It's a long book. It's got a lot of detail, but it's not written. It's not above. It's not a pretentious. It's not written. The prose is not pretentious, and the prose is not inaccessible. It's deeply accessible, and it speaks to anybody who has lived on this earth and dealt with classism and the exploitation of and rape of Mother Earth. I mean, who can't relate to that? Just saying.
Still, my favorite part of the film, I will have to say, is the whole Thopter versus Sand Cloud sequence with Jessica and Paul, and them. What follows, where they finally meet, a worm face to face, and that's incredible. Like, so well done. That's my favorite. And also at the end, coming back to the worms and seeing somebody,
a Fremen
riding and taming it. Incredible. It makes you, like, just feel like you're a little kid, and you're gonna go out and be
A big
a
adventure
Fremen too,
yeah.
and on a big adventure. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because two things. There's obviously huge allusions to Islam, but there's also deep Christianity in this, with allusions to the Messiah and Paul going into the desert, #Jesus. So you have a lot of that going on. And I think, when Paul starts to shift towards becoming Muad'Dib, when he embraces the fact that he is Lisan al-Gaib, and he says to his mother when she's looking out for his interests and just trying to get him back to Caladan, and she says to Stilgar, like, I know you guys have ships, I know you guys have spies or whatever, and Paul says to her, no, my dad came here not because he wanted to mine spice, not because he wanted to rule, but because he wanted to know the power of the desert and the power of the Fremen. My path is into the desert. And then the movie, the first act closes, or Dune Part 1 ends with them walking into the desert with the Fremen, and you see that epic shot of a Fremen riding.
One of my favorite shots, hands down,
Shai-Hulud.
in the film.
But yeah, the scene
because
where
it gives you all the love of the Fremen and all the excitement and adventure and
Yes.
I felt like a little kid
and
again.
what's to come.
I just want to be there
on an
adventure. Yes.
Yes.
It's
But the scene where Shai-Hulud comes up out of the sand and is ready to eat Lady Jessica and Paul, and even before he can, what's his name? I forget his name. One of the Fremen places the thumper to distract the sandworm. The sandworm just stops in its tracks and just looks at Paul and drinks him in. And they focus in on this.
There's a lot more to that scene than I realized at first, because they also have reached rock, so they've reached a point where the sandworm can no longer go.
Right.
But at the same time, there's an awareness between Paul and the sandworm.
They see each other.
Yeah, and he is the chosen one. So there's this whole connection happening.
Sorry, there's a little Yoda joining us.
I told you he eats.
I know he eats.
Just kidding.
Hi, buddy. So I mean, that's pretty much everything I had to say. I think we agree that insofar as an adaptation of Dune, an impossible thing to adapt, he succeeded.
Now it's possible.
He succeeded. Yeah.
The meat and the Dune are now possible.
Yeah.
They're not impossible anymore.
Right. We have Beyond. Yeah. We've gone Beyond.
We don't like Beyond.
We don't acknowledge the Beyond brand.
Yeah.
But
#spam.
Okay.
I just think impossible meat tastes better.
It does. It's the superior fake meat.
It is.
But yeah, the movie is absolutely stunning. It bears multiple viewings.
Yes.
Read the book as much
I
as
would
you possibly
recommend
can.
the movie to anyone. I think everyone will get something out of it. Something good out of it.
And you will see that every sci-fi narrative, no matter how original, no matter how unoriginal, would not exist, I don't think, without, much like Dune probably wouldn't exist without Isaac Asimov and the people that came before. But much of what we've seen in cinema anyways, as far as science fiction is concerned, we wouldn't have without Frank Herbert's vision.
Absolutely.
And so I just have a closing quote. Shall I close this out?
Yes.
If you want to say
close
something
this
else.
out. No, I'm good.
Okay. Greatness is a transitory experience. It is never consistent. It depends in part upon the myth-making imagination of humankind. The person who experiences greatness must have a feeling for the myth he is in. He must reflect what is projected upon him, and he must have a strong sense of the sardonic. This is what uncouples him from belief in his own pretensions. The sardonic is all that permits him to move within himself. Without this quality, even occasional greatness will destroy a man. This is from the collective sayings of Muad'Dib, written by the Princess Irulan.
Love it. So magical. Go see Dune and let us know what you thought.
Yes, comment below on everything we got right, and don't comment below on everything we got wrong. But like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you on the other side.
We love you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Fear is the mind killer, bitches.
Fear is the mind killer.